Thank you for being here. I know we still have people who want to come in, so we'll try to stall a moment. There's seats all up in the front. Everyone's sitting where the naughty kids sit. There's plenty of seats up in the front. The naughty kids are in the front, okay.
Come on and get a seat. You already have a seat. Find somewhere to put it.
Well, welcome again to the Cameron Art Museum. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ben Billingsley. I'm Associate Curator at the museum. I am so grateful for all of you being here tonight. This, I think, is one of the most extraordinary exhibitions that we've had the privilege to present to this community. Fred, the great Fredini Kahl, is really a force of nature. I don't want to spoil his talk, but if he doesn't mention to you things like Coney Island, sword swallowing, yoga, meditation, spirituality, and how all of those things are actually all the same, and he hasn't done his job. Fred is truly a fascinating artist, and his career spans an enormous number of different disciplines. It's rooted, though, in performance, and you can tell from the man's attire, he is ready to perform. The works, I think you will probably benefit from viewing multiple times. I encourage you, not just for the sake of coming through the doors of the museum more than once, but for your own sake. You want to spend some time with these works when it's a little quieter. Tonight is fantastic. I love seeing this many number of people in this room. But you really do want to spend some time with Fred's work. It's meant, I think, to help you find a center and find some peace and find a freedom from the distractions of the phones, the screens, and all of the other modern things that are kind of wrecking our lives. That being said, try putting your phones on mute, silent mode. That would be helpful. You are welcome to take photographs in the galleries, but please no flash photography, and please no drinks in the gallery where the art actually is. I am speaking tonight not only on my own behalf, but also on behalf of Heather Wilson, our CEO, who unfortunately is recovering from COVID and can't be here. She would love to be here tonight. Heather always stresses that the Cameron Art Museum is a museum of community. It's a museum that was built by this community. The current exhibition in the Brown Wing is selections from our permanent collection, and many of those things are objects that were collected by the people who live in this area. Some of them are here tonight, and I just want to thank you for your donations and for your help in growing a world-class museum. We always stress that the Cameron is really the premier art museum in the Southeast. We serve an 8-county radius. Really, if this is anything in our crown, it's the greatest jewel. We have just been granted our accreditation, which I think speaks volumes to the work that this crew has done over the last decade easily. Yeah, thank you. So we really welcome you here. I want you to feel like this is your museum and the work is here, I think, honestly, to help you engage and find some truth and some beauty and some light. And with that being said, the incomparable Fred Kahl.
Thank you, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. It just feels incredible to actually be here on this night, like knowing that I've been planning for it all year, and I have so much gratitude to all of the staff at the Cameron Museum here. So thank you, Ben, Bob, Susan, everyone who I've been working with. I really appreciate all the support that you've given me, and it feels so great to get to show this work that's been really a decade in the making. I also want to acknowledge Starworks, which is a facility in Star, North Carolina, where a lot of the work was made, and has really been a great place of really personal breakthroughs with work. And I'm so excited to have my girlfriend Sonia here with me. And I have friends from undergraduate, Dan McCleary, who I met in 1983 as a freshman in college, and Tom Igo, inventor of the Arduino controller, who I went to grad school with, and just so many friends, old and new. So thank you all for coming. And I just want to talk a little bit about my work. Has been alluded to. I have a kind of an eclectic past. I'm going to touch on, who I am as an artist and talk about the work that's in the gallery. A lot of the stuff that I will show tonight is very process-oriented. I'm very much a process artist, and I tend to work in really on a project basis. So I'll have these arcs where I'll pursue a project for about 7 or so years and really kind of get into it. And it's great to finally get to show some of this work with glass and light, but it's been cooking for a long time. So with no further ado, I'm going to start talking about some of the tenets of my work. And one of the things that has come up over and over again is I seem to like things that are spinning. Like, it's crazy. I don't know, it just keeps happening. And really, all of the work that I do is really driven by curiosity. And when I say curiosity, it's really inquiry and just diving into things. And I trace this back to my childhood, where the first 2 words that I learned to read in the golden age of sugar-coated cereal was free inside. First 2 words I learned to read. It kind of makes sense that I ended up performing in the sideshow in Coney Island, where there were these amazing banners that just paint these pictures in your mind of these fantastical things that are going to happen inside the closed doors. And really, Coney Island was this amazing place when I moved to New York City in the early 80s, and it was, they say there's more remaining of ancient Rome than there is in turn of the century Coney Island. But I fell in with this artist organization, Coney Island, USA, was on the board of directors there, and performed in the sideshows before that. And it's this wonderful nonprofit arts organization based in Brooklyn's Amusement Park Beach. And it's this beautiful, amazing melting pot of all of New York City's culture and all different races and ethnicities that meet together at this meeting of surf and sun. Like I said, there's very little turn of the century Coney Island remaining, but it's really just this kind of magical place. And it really enchanted me when I came to New York, and just seeing all these weird scenes and things that were going on there, and it inspired me. And so a lot of the themes that have come up in my work over my life, regardless of what the project is, the magic is really an overarching theme in my work. And what magic means has grown as I have grown. So some early performance art kind of things, where, to me magic was really about tricks and illusions, about creating these just sort of spectacle. Here I am as a totally green kid at the sideshow, but I kind of fell in with this group of performers who were, some of them in their 80s, ending their career, who had really worked in the sideshow over their lifetimes, and it was really an amazing experience. There was no sword swallower in the show, and I was told, sword swallowing, that's yoga. So I went and I studied yoga, and I taught myself to swallow sword, and I even, here's a little, that was on the Geraldo show. I made a neon sword, and I swallowed the neon sword, and you could see light coming through my throat. And so that was one of the acts that I did. And Or this is a curved sword, so I have to bend over sideways. So kids, don't try this at home. That's right, wait till you get to school. So I did that for about a decade, and there kind of isn't a lot of like upward track to sword swallowing at a certain point. And I was fortunate enough to go back to school right as sort of the internet and that kind of thing was happening. My interest in yoga actually grew and really started investigating more yogic philosophy and the sort of philosophies behind yoga, and that has increasingly been a part of my life. Here I am with my teacher, Sharon Gannon, from Jivamukti Yoga, and then my teacher certification. My work also, and I would actually say this sort of like metaphysical investigation is really like a growth of my interest in magic. And that interest also has expanded into working with different indigenous tribes, with plant medicine, and really investigating the nature of consciousness. And I think at the heart of it, the work that you see in the gallery is all about that. So another aspect of my work is play. And my dad had a great sense of humor and somehow got imparted on me. And just play has always been a big part of my life. The experience is like being on Monster Garage, where we turned this Winnebago into a mobile fun house. And I won a big set of Mac tools. But then here's a scene from the TV show Crank Yankers. You can see the special ed is reading 1001 Knock Knock Jokes by Fred Kahl. And this is, as I got really interested in 3D printing, and one of the things that kept happening is I would have these print fails, and I had posted some blog posts of all these print fails, and then later on somebody sent me a link to a special effects magazine where the special effects house had cited this print as the inspiration for a Doctor Who villain. So I was pretty honored to have some of my work inspire some of the bad guys in Doctor Who. So another tenet of my work is availism, and this really comes back to being a sort of poor artist in New York City, growing up and really, New York is pretty cleaned up and a lot different than it was in 1983, but when I first moved there, it was, this was the view out my bedroom, and the East Village was nothing compared to what it is now. That was another view across the street, and it was pretty Wild West when I moved to New York. So a lot of the early paintings that I was doing at that time were inspired by artists like Robert Rauschenberg, and reflecting this kind of gritty, sort of New York atmosphere. And the notion of availism is really about working with whatever means you have. And that kind of plays into some of the process work that I do now. Oops, I did something, I hit the escape button. This was an oil painting that I did, and well, you don't need to know. All right, let's keep going. Approachability. Approachability is another theme in my work. So really, at a certain point, I realized I didn't want to play the gallery game. I really wanted to focus on making the work that I wanted to make. I didn't want to be a quote-unquote commercial artist. I really just wanted to express without leads. And it was strongly influenced by a show that the New Museum had in the late 80s called Art as Life. And it was all about artists who make their everyday life their art form. And so embracing that has been really key to me. And the work with Coney Island was really about making work that's approachable, that people who aren't college educated can appreciate, and really making it available. And of course, as a kid, I loved many of these kind of things like wacky packages. Artists like Art Spiegelman worked as a production artist for Topps Company making these. Sid and Marty Croft, who I had the pleasure of meeting later in life, and of course the Ron Show. So, you know, there was a moment in New York where I went in, I was all about showbiz, and we created this show called America's Favorite Burlesque Game Show, This or That. This was a project that I spent about a decade on, and it was a burlesque TV game show, and the arc was really about finding, you know, having, oh, there's no sound. Anyway, it was about these contestants who come out of the audience, and they just have like this complete kind of coming out of their shell experience, and I was watching their transformation, and there was pretty good, clean fun is what it was. So that was this or that, and so that was Juliette Smuse, who was my co-host, and that was a good time. We actually got turned down by Spike TV and Comedy Central, but we did run in 6 national markets on public access TV for a couple of years. So. Anyway, replication or duplication is another theme that just keeps coming up in the work over the years. As a kid, I sold seeds door to door for the Burpee Seed Company, and you got this catalog of all the stuff you could get if you sold seeds, and so I actually got a printing press, and I published a book called The Adventures of Budman. So the printing press, it goes back to like, you know, it goes back, and so naturally when desktop 3D printing really hit, it sort of spoke to me, and I was really excited about it, and it really, you know, I'd spent a lot of time working, well, I'm going to get to technology, but I was working as creative director, and I, you know, had been doing a lot of software-based stuff, and I love the way 3D printing brought back in sort of real-world stuff. So, you know, and later with glass, you know, so mold making and this kind of replication has been a theme that I've used a lot. And then lastly, like form, round things. Like graduation from undergrad, this was like my thesis show. I did a lot of work with globes and cast glass, and you know, did a lot of work with these found dinner plates and making decals on them, and just round things are something that keep coming up, and you know, you see it in the show and here. So anyway, so those are some of the tenets of like things that have come up and thematically throughout my work. And then lastly, like technology. So, you know, it's interesting, like we live in this digital era, and I think for a while, like my work really got so focused on that, and we all got hypnotized by these devices. I was really fortunate to go through grad school right at the beginning of the World Wide Web. I was a founding member of this company called Funny Garbage, which was a design company really geared towards interactive education or entertainment, and we had a lot of entertainment clients. Clients like Cartoon Network. This is one of the last projects I did there. It was the watch and play app. So on the top half of your iPad, you could watch cartoons, while at the bottom half, you could play games. So it was the ultimate attention deficit thing, and you know, it's my fault. I like corrupted society here, but we had a lot of fun, and it really was that sort of sugar-coated cereal of digital culture. And here I am. We won a mashup. We did a video mashup application with Noggin Nickelodeon Network. At the end was their teen network. And this is outstanding achievement in advanced media technology for non-synchronous enhancement of original broadcast content. So, they had to write the award around. So, you know, like I kind of found myself in this world that we're in now where, you know, computing power is essentially free. The internet is ubiquitous, and all of a sudden there's all these devices that are completely, you know, we're connected, and we have these intelligent robots that are able to help us. And I got really fascinated by 3D printing. One of the things that really excited me was somebody had come up with this software where you could use the Xbox game controller, the, what's it called? Kinect. Controller to 3D scan people. And I was intrigued by this 3D portraiture kind of thing. And I invented this thing, the Scanatron 3000, full body 3D scanner. Here I'm scanning my daughter, Katya, and so it was really this pretty rinky-dink device. It was a turntable the person would stand on for about 60 seconds. It would be rotating, and we would move the Kinect up and down on this rail, and it would capture a 3D image of them. And I opened this thing called Coney Island Scanorama. It was the portrait studio of the future. And I scanned something like 5,000 people. This is Neil Patrick Harris and his family, and I'm scanning them, and you know, and I would produce these statues. So I mail people these 3D prints of themselves. They're about 6 inches tall, and spent a couple years doing that. And it was my big get rich slow scheme, and it, you know, Coney Island, there'd be like amazing weird people who would come through. This was from a show at Yale University where I showed a group of sideshow performers that I had scanned adjacent to a 1920s Edward Kelty photograph of sideshow performers, and it was in a show at Yale University Galleries. And I also, you know, I alluded to at the beginning how I said there was more that remains of turn-of-the-century Coney, of ancient Rome than there is in turn-of-the-century Coney Island. So one of the things that had always fascinated me in Coney Island was Luna Park, which was the creation of this guy, Frederick Thompson. It was a showcase for Edison's light bulb. There were over 100,000 light bulbs adorning this sort of fantasy architecture that he created. He was a dropout from the Beaux-Arts Academy in France, and he created this amazing wonderland. Like nobody had ever seen electric light before, and they're in this like incredible fantasy land. And there are some amazing films of it, and it had always really intrigued me, and I got really carried away with recreating it as a 3D model. And I spent a couple years working on these 3D models, and that's the scan of me for scale, next to some of the boardwalk sections. And then I had an exhibit at the Coney Island Museum where we displayed this, and I did a Kickstarter. I raised something like $17,000 on Kickstarter, and everyone who backed it got 3D scanned, and then they were in the model. So there were all these different portraits of people, and so this was a big project for a couple of years, and I can't even tell you how many hours of 3D printing. It just took forever. I then did a project. I had a residency at TED and adapted all those models to a VR. And so my talk is called Why I Built a Time Machine. And it let you move through Luna Park, and then you could jump between different time periods. So there were 3 different years that you could jump to and see how the park had changed. And by the end of this, it's really funny, I kind of realized, like, I don't want to be in that world. I want to be in this world. Like, I want to, like, virtual reality, like, this is the virtual reality. This is the reality I want to be in. And so, all the work coming out of this experience really led to the glass that that's in the gallery here, and I'm going to talk next about that work. So really, that thing called COVID happened, and we all were sort of in the chrysalis, right? And it was a real moment of transformation, and for me, it was a lot about really revisiting some of those yoga experiences. I had also traveled a couple times to Cambodia, and it had been a lifelong dream to see the ruins of Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom that you see here, and all the temples that are there. And I love these carvings of the apsaras, the heavenly dancers, and in general, all the glass sculptures I started making, I called them apsaras after these figures. The work was also heavily inspired by this guy, Thomas Wilfred, who is a light artist who's little known these days. He gave concerts. This is him performing his machine called the Clavalex. It was an organ for creating compositions of light. And he created these performances that were attended by Kandinsky, Jackson Pollock, all these sort of artists in New York were heavily inspired. And I had an experience seeing, there would be these moving compositions of light like this. Some of them would last for like 7 years before they repeat. And there was all gears and motors moving, reflected pads and different things. And causing these light refractions. And when I was in about 6th grade, I saw one of these at the Museum of Modern Art. And when I learned about him, I kind of rekindled this memory and was really inspired about that. So, and then this is actually a more recent inspiration. I'm just showing some inspiration stuff right now. This is what's called a Merkana. It's a 3D thing in Islamic architecture found in mosques that are sort of these 3D transitions composed of 2D geometry that's been extruded into 3D geometry. And in Islam, you're not allowed to depict God, but you're able to evoke it through these incredible geometric kinds of things. So all of these are sort of like inspirational aspects of the work that you see in the gallery out front. So a little bit about process. I would model things in software, so I would build a model. And then this is a CNC machine, so it's a rotary bit that's carving. It's much like a 3D printer, but it's a carving machine. And that's a solid block of graphite that the thing is carved out. The rough side towards the back is, I've done like a rough pass where it's taken a lot of material out, and then we change the bit to a finer bit and go through it. So that's how the molds for a lot of the glass is created. And the product of that mold was this tile here. And that was part of a design set. So I was thinking a lot about tiles. I've used these as like in my bathroom. I have some embedded in the wall with light behind them. But they were also sort of like this tile set. And then I started realizing that if you take 8 of those tiles, they'll fit together. So this is the small tile, and they sort of fit together like this, and I thought that's pretty cool. And so I built this on the end of the pipe, and then I built a bigger one. One of these is in the gallery back there. And then when I was at Corning, we had a demo, and I had all these strong guys, so we made a really big one which weighed 92 pounds. And I like that the cross that's in the center, like it becomes the stepped cross, and the previous it's like a regular cross and a square, the way the tiles fit together. And so that really opened up a lot of ideas about how I could create these compositions of multiple castings, and we built them on the end of a pipe. And because glass sticks to itself, you can kind of keep casting more and keep assembling. So I started doing, the next group of work I did was based on a truncated icosahedron form, like a soccer ball. So 5 and 6-sided cones that fit together. And I started creating different compositions of these. all sort of stuck together. And this piece is in the show. And then really realizing like where I was interested in with this work was thinking about these pieces as sort of meditational objects and really about the sort of way that geometry can invoke something divine. This piece is not assembled hot, this was glued. It's about 22 inches in diameter and it was so heavy. It's over 300 pounds and I can't, it takes 4 people to move it, so that's why it's not in the show. This was, so I have a grouping of 7 of these and they represent the 7 chakras in the body. I'm really thinking about the different energy centers in the human body. And another theme that's really big in the work is really thinking about the sort of energetic fields around us, like with the chakras, which are all located along the central channel in the body, how energy moves up and around, and there's like this toroidal field of energy, and really everything is fields, if you understand, if you follow sort of the energy work, and a lot of like the gut, the solar plexus chakra is really the home of the body's intelligence. It's not in our heads. Like our body processes like 100 million neural impulses a second, and that's the home of the body. Where the microbiome is, and so as I sort of increasingly have embraced meditation, and the work really became significant in it as like an embodiment of some of these ideas. In 2019, I had this amazing opportunity to visit StarWorks in Star, North Carolina. I urge you all to take a visit there. It's an amazing community of artists with facilities for ceramics, glass, wood. Wood is hopefully on the horizon, metal casting, and it really was a breakthrough moment for me where I really started working on some of these forms. One of the things I started investigating at StarWorks was centrifugal casting. So I built this crazy machine where you can pour glass in the mold and you crank the handle and it would spin the glass really fast. And it would make the surface of, instead of being flat on the surface, the mold would, like the cast object would be centrifugal, dished, like concave kind of surface. So I got really excited about that. It was really a great place to, I could kind of make these castings where it wasn't flat. And then, thinking about 8 of those fitting together, and then I could build this kind of crazy object like this, which I guess I didn't hit the right button. Anyway, so this piece is in the gallery over there, so you can see it, but it's 8 of these centrifugally castings stuck together. So that's the final object. And again, there are a number of these. So this one is also in the gallery. This was 30 different castings assembled hot, and the 2 cones are sort of like just touching at the point in the center. So that was really a satisfying but a hot piece to make, and it took forever, and it was 110 degrees in the studio, so I don't think I'll ever do it again, but it was pretty great. Oh, I see, I clicked again. All right, so let's see. So one of the things, going back to Thomas Wilford, I was very excited about this idea of light moving through these things and thinking about these sculptures as lenses to create these lumia. And I did a lot of experimentation for a couple of years of like how to capture this sort of like ethereal essence of light moving through the glass, and just playing with things on turntables with light and trying to figure out how to control it, and play with lasers. Didn't want to burn people's retinas. So in the meantime, back home, like a lot of the work, it's hard to really, you don't have a glass studio to work in at home in your apartment. So I have my CNC machine that I use to carve the molds for the glass, and what I did was I hooked it up with a pen and I used it to plot these drawings, and I started doing these drawings really regularly, and you can see those in the side gallery over there, and really started playing with these different imagery that I would create in the computer. And you know, a lot of this imagery comes out of my work with plant medicine and really looking at plants as you know, the way plants will pool resources if there's a drought, and really looking at it as sort of like models that human society could benefit from studying or embracing more, and really did a lot of playing around with something called book matching, which is done in stone and woodworking, where the grain of the wood is mirrored, and you're able to kind of invoke the divine through these repetition and mirrored forms. So got really into some of these designs. We'll just show you a little bit of how that is done with taking photographs of trees, converting that to line art, and then those photographs mirrored upon themselves to create the drawing, and then they're executed by a drawing machine like the one that you see in the gallery. I also work some with algorithmic software and really playing with geometry, and it's just been great to have something that's immediate, whereas a lot of the glasswork is sort of all in the 5-year plan. So you can see these drawings in the other room, but you know, they're really meant to sort of invoke you know, something inside of you. This image actually came from a tree. I had a visiting artistship at my elementary school, and I was invited back last spring, and I remembered that I had this mystical experience with a giant beech tree in 2nd grade, and I found the tree and took pictures of it, and this is another one of the same tree, and I just love that it feels like it's a cathedral or some kind of really special space where, and really like this just feels like an entity of the plants. And so those are some of the things that I'll do in my downtime when I'm not doing glasswork. But then I had this gig to, this was from Penland. I had a visiting artistship at Penland and during the pandemic, and I designed this piece Kayatibu that's on the wall in the gallery. Started as a digital design, carved a mold for it. So this is just same kind of process. After the mold is carved, we pour the glass into the mold, and we're able to cast these petals. So made a whole bunch of those and brought them back home to New York. And you know, when they came out of the oven, they were really nice. We did an installation on the lawn at Penland with these, and finally figured out, with the help of Mac and Starworks, figured out a mounting system to mount it on the wall. And then it took another year of kind of like tweaking with LED lights and software to kind of build what you see in the gallery. So there's sort of a software component. This piece has 720 LEDs that are all individually addressable, so they're able to change color and be any color. And so the piece is really meant to be a kind of meditation where you are encouraged to, you know, sort of be present with the work. You know, the way the brain works, our brains are prediction machines. We're constantly trying to figure out what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next. And we're looking to the past for some data to inform our prediction. And our past is influencing our perception of the present, and you know, tends to live in fear and expect the worst. And so this work is really about bringing you back into presence, getting you off the phone, all of that digital culture that I helped create with the Watch and Play app, and it's really about sort of trying to bring you back into presence. And so the work is really about meditation. And that brings me to the show here at the Camera Museum. And you know, I was trying to figure out this giant piece that's on the wall in there. This was one of the earliest sketches for it. I did a thing for about 2 months having AI generate this idea. I wanted to explore the idea of a toroidal form, like a void in the center, and this vortex of energy that channeled things like the Big Bang. I was invoking things like atom field microscopes, basalt columns, coral forms, vortexes of clouds, different feathers, acanthus leaves, you know, drawn in the style of Gustave Doré in the 18th century engraving style, different biological references, the underside pattern of lily pads, the fibers of the human eye and the iris. Like these were all just images I generated. Oh, there's some, this one is on a t-shirt. You can buy in the gift shop. So they, you know, really just trying to just spitball ideas. It wasn't really like a design exercise, it was just more like, how can I explore this whole AI thing people are crazy about? So I did sort of, this is where I kind of got to. And then of course I carved the molds. I had this amazing, I got a chance to come back to StarWorks and work with this amazing team down there. And here's Clayton. He's here in the audience, and he muscled all these ladles. I'm getting old, and I'm like way too out of shape to lift all this glass anymore. I'm like, damn. I needed to start lifting weights, but so this is a process that's used to cast the pieces that you see on the big piece of the wall. So we would ladle into the mold, and then you know, when the glass is cut off, he throws what's ever left back in the furnace. We call this technique peanut buttering, where we sort of spread it into the corners of the mold, make sure we have a clean cast. When that's done, we're going to take that mold, that piece, flip it out of the mold while it's still pliable. This is a technique used in Venetian chandelier making. So it's on this block, we call it draping block, and it has this nice contour rather than being a perfectly flat casting. And then this was the other thing that I designed for this year at StarWorks, using this phyllotaxis pattern that would be found in a pine cone or a sunflower, with the chacruna, the Mayan cross in the center. I created a centrifugal casting mold. So really taking this centrifugal casting thing to the next level and really spinning it at high speed with a lid so the glass doesn't go flying out. And it was really satisfying, you know, where we could have this thing spin up the walls and get this big dish shape. So out in the lobby you can see a lamp that is made with one of these bowls, and which is available in the gift shop. And then, yeah, so like the center of the piece. There's one in the gallery that has also been slumped flat into a platter. This summer I took a little hiatus off and I went to Burning Man. I helped build this piece. This is called Eye to the Sky. It's a 50-foot long structure that sort of invokes, the idea was really this living room, like this gathering place, community out on the playa. So we trucked this giant thing that was all prefab parts, and and then screwed it together with 15,000 fasteners over 10 days in the middle of sandstorms, and the whole thing was hoisted up in the air. Yeah, it was one of the most physically grueling things I've ever done in my life, and I don't know if I ever need to go back to Burning Man, but you know, one of my goals with the Glasswork is really bringing it back to, you know, bringing the work to this monumental scale, and it was really satisfying to be able to build this structure. And then at the center of the structure, I had this glass sculpture that was sort of this fountain of light at the center of the sculpture. And oh, it seems like the video got cut off. But it was really a deeply satisfying experience. That was Mike White, the architect for the structure, my collaborator. And so some shots of the final structure. And we had these beautiful bent wood benches that were inside, and then people would kind of gather around this fountain of light at the center, which was sort of the table version of the piece that you see in the wall. All right, so to wrap this slideshow, here I am 2 weeks ago, in my living room assembling all this stuff. It was like that pile of wires was pretty much my mental state at that moment. I was literally making plans like, what happens if I can't get this thing lit? There's the moment where we got it lit last week, or like 4 days ago, whatever it was. And I thought I'd just show you the software that's running the piece. So this is the software, and what you're seeing on the left is this two-dimensional field of color that's being generated, and on the right you see a 3D model that represents the points in space of the sculpture. So those 3,024 points are three-dimensionally in space. See, it's being rotated, and this color field is projected onto those points in space, and each pixel is able to light up according to whatever the software is saying. So, you know, my goal with this piece, I'm still kind of tweaking with the software and looking to expand this experience of sort of mirroring and symmetry within the piece. So, you know, that's something that I'm continuing to explore with the piece. I'm hoping tomorrow night to get a couple hours in here. And so, you know, it might be a different piece when you come back and see it again. But it feels, oh, I see, I didn't even hang the last piece of glass until this morning, so I didn't even have a picture to put in the slideshow. Anyway, so that's the work, and that's me, and thank you.